In this episode of How'd You Get Here, we talk with Trinity Hindman. She's the owner of a tea company and a successful entrepreneur. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is an amazing show.
You know, throughout my life, I've always kind of loved talking to people, as you know.
Yes.
The other thing we should preface here is that you're my big sister. I didn't want to like broadcast that, like, oh, my big sister.
Whatever. You bring it up every time we're in public
I said
settings.
Big sister, not old sister. Okay.
I don't know which one is more insulting.
Ouch. Burn. So anyways, you know, I was thinking about, as always, you know, I'm planning out the guests for the show and thinking about who would be, you know, good to interview, and that people that we can kind of gain some knowledge from, because I know there's a lot of people out there. I mean, I've had interactions with a lot of different people who have wanted to, you know, make their own cookie dough, or, you know, they have a special recipe that their mom gave them for chili and they want to bottle it and,
Sure.
You know, create a product and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people have those ideas of, you know, something that they're really good at, maybe, whether it be a food product or whether it be an actual physical thing like a necklace or a bracelet or something like that. And I think what's cool is nowadays, you know, sites like Etsy and stuff like that has really made it feasible for someone to take their idea and create it and then get it out there to an audience and sell it. And so anyways, when I was thinking about the different types of people that, you know, we want to have on the show and interview and gain some knowledge from, obviously you came to mind, as you have a tea company where you sell loose leaf and concentrates, and it's been a grind, you know, but it's also, I would say, very successful. I mean, you're selling tea all over the United States. You have some big, you know, contracts with some really big brands that sell your product, and so I think that that you're a great person to you know, have on the show.
Oh,
so,
well, thank you.
Thank you for being here. And so as always, I like to start with people just kind of sharing their journey, sharing where they came from, sharing you know, what their life was like growing up, and so kind of give us, you know, a little bit of that story of, you know, where you came from, where you grew up, and
Sure.
you know, your life all the way, you know, through college.
Yes. So I grew up in Colorado, Denver, Aurora, actually, a suburb of Denver, and just kind of grew up in a pretty fragmented home. Parents divorced. Mom wasn't in the picture. And at 17, I found myself on my own and didn't have a place to live, and a dear family took me in, and I moved to Wisconsin. So once moving to Wisconsin, I decided to head off to college, and that's actually where I met my husband, Jeremiah. And we traveled around the U.S. for a number of years with jobs and extended university, and we ended up in Texas. So we lived there for about 4 years. And around that time, I started getting a little antsy. I had really set myself up into this place where I had 3 kids, a spouse. I stayed home with the kids. I kind of had built the dream that I had envisioned wanting as a kid, coming from a home that was, just broken.
Yeah. So as a kid, then, did you ever have any entrepreneur endeavors or ideas or thoughts, or was that really nothing? Like, you weren't, you hear the story of like that guy who was like, oh yeah, I was, shoveling snow at 5 years old, and I had a lemonade stand making $1,000 a week,
Yeah, no, I had no long-term ambitions. I was very social and outgoing. Had, before the acronym was used, a serious level of FOMO. So I always fear of missing out. I was voted in high school as most likely to be on an info commercial. That was the extent of my
info commercial.
Yes.
An infomercial, as they like to call it.
Yeah, that too. And my aspirations, I wanted to be a cross between Oprah and Perry Mason. And for all you young people out there who don't know who Perry Mason
Which
is,
is like nobody, unless they watch like, I don't even know if Nick at Night's still a
channel,
thing. It was
Aurora. It was Denver's Channel 2 played Perry Mason. It was black and white. He was a lawyer, but he just kicked ass every time. He could figure out who killed who every single time.
Was Perry Mason the grandpa on Princess Bride?
Oh man, I don't know.
Okay, I can't remember.
Google that.
Or was it Andy Griffith? Wasn't Andy Griffith also in like a mystery?
Andy Griffith had the Andy Griffith Show.
No, but then when he got old,
that was Madlock.
Okay,
yeah, this was before Madlock. This was before. But Perry Mason was my hero because he seemed to be able to master the arguing. You know, he could just argue his way with facts, you know. And Oprah was giving away free stuff all the time. And she was solving world problems too. So I had high aspirations.
You're like, listen, I want to argue a lot and give away free stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, that's really funny. So Perry Mason and Oprah. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I actually haven't ever told anyone that.
I know. I don't think I've ever heard you say that before, but the secret is out.
It is.
He wanted to be a black dude.
He was white.
Right, but Oprah's black, so.
Oh my God.
You were a poor white girl who wanted to be a rich black man.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. So as a kid, it was like you never really had entrepreneurial spirit or ideas.
I did not retain.
Even though you were probably surrounded by lots of people who were entrepreneurs and things like
we
that.
did have family members that were entrepreneurs, and my mind never went that far. It was always what is the immediate. I really enjoyed working out as a kid. I paid for my own membership to the gym. I really enjoyed being in choir and enjoyed hanging out with my friends. So I felt like my childhood was very narrow. We didn't read a lot of books growing up. I never remember anyone reading to me. So my friends who have grown up in homes where they were especially avid readers, I feel that their worlds opened up far bigger than their living room. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in a suburb of Denver, and it stayed that kind of narrowed view of life. I never, ever thought I would even leave Colorado. I think I just always thought I would be living there. And then we were really involved in a church growing up. That was something that was very important to our family. So outside of church, social, and then those few extracurricular activities, my world was very small.
Interesting. So then you go off to college, and when you go off to college, did you have any thoughts or ideas of what you wanted to do, or was it just kind of like, I
think no, I don't even think I really wanted to get an education. It was just the thing that everyone else was doing, and I had FOMO issues. So
you're like, listen, I want to miss out. I need to go to college.
Yeah. I was undecided in what I wanted to get a degree in. I think because my childhood was so messy, I think as I became an adult at 18, what I was really desiring was stability and an unconditional love that I wasn't feeling that I received at home growing up. So whatever avenues I needed to take to create that world for myself, I was willing to do. And I honestly could not articulate that at 18. I really wouldn't have been able to tell you back then, like, I want security and I want to feel loved. But ultimately, that's what I was searching for. Mm-hmm. And at 18, I met a guy who, I guess within that realm of wanting security and wanting love, I equated those two things. I wanted to get married, which would provide security, and I wanted to have kids, which would provide that unconditional love that I was searching for. So I was hard, fast looking. Who is a guy who is willing to get hitched fast?
Listen, I want to get married and get laid really quick.
How can we make this happen? So thankfully, I found a willing party.
You had an agreement.
I had an agreement. I want to get married. I actually dated a guy in college who told me on the first date he never wanted to have kids, and I broke up with him.
Just
I was
like
like,
that.
We can't date anymore.
I know you look like Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
And you're amazing, but
yes, but
my ovaries are calling.
Exactly. So I got married really
you got
young.
married at 19 then?
20.
20 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
So got married at 20. And then,
but started seriously dating like at 19.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I did not find that odd at all. Like, again, it was this driving force within me to create this world for myself. And then at 23, I had my firstborn. So by the time I was 28, I had already been married 8 years, and I had 3 children. So at 30,
You crushed your goals.
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't know they were goals back then, but they were goals,
Right.
essentially.
It's like, listen.
So at 30, I found myself feeling really lost. Like, people laugh at me when I say this, but I really did have a midlife crisis.
At 30.
At 30.
Wow.
I mean, I wanted to leave my husband. I was trying to figure out like how I would do that and not leave my kids. But then I was frustrated with myself. Why am I feeling this emotion of like wanting to escape? What am I wanting to escape from? I wasn't able to articulate the emotions that I was feeling, and I was looking for physical
you're still
things.
Like, you think about at that age, you're so young still. I mean,
Yeah.
even in my early 20s, I got married at 23. I still didn't know who I was. I was still trying to figure out who I was. And so you throw in kids and a husband and all these things. And right around 30 is, I think, where you kind of start to figure that out or start that journey, at least for me.
Yeah.
Was, okay, this is who I am. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy to think, how entrenched you are in life at that point when you have that midlife crisis,
Right. So much this sounds dramatic, but so much at stake. I mean, exactly. Growing up in a family that was divorced, I never wanted to have my children experience that, and yet having thoughts of that made me feel immensely guilty.
Right.
And then questioning, what are my reasons for wanting to end this relationship? Nothing kept coming up as equaling. Jeremiah was a wonderful spouse, and he loved me deeply and loved our children deeply. There was nothing that stuck out that give me any reason to put into action these weird thoughts.
Right.
And so around that time, my youngest was getting around school age, and so Jeremiah, my husband, said, maybe you should start looking what you're wanting to do with your life. I mean, you've birthed and nurtured these little children, and now they're in school. And so that became a lot of self-reflection. What do I want to do? What could I contribute? And I think, honestly, the emotions that I was feeling at 30 really came down to wanting to contribute to society in some way. Birthing and nurturing small children, there is this feeling that you are part of something bigger than yourself. But once my kids got into school, there was this hole of not really knowing what my purpose was anymore, and yet feeling very passionate about wanting to be part of something bigger than myself. And I think that is the essence of all humanity. All of humanity desires to be part of something bigger than themselves. And when they're not contributing in that way, many times they fill that void with self-destructive actions, self-destructive addictions. And I think it can happen to any one of us at any time in our lives. It's not only a certain season. I think it can really, we talk about the actual midlife crisis. And I think that a lot of individuals have that because they've been doing that same career or, raising this family, and they get to this place in their life where everything's on autopilot, and they're no longer feeling like they're digging deeper, they're contributing in a deeper way.
It'll actually be interesting to see how society evolves and changes, because I feel like a lot of my friends who are in their mid 30s, late 30s aren't even married yet. They're just starting that journey.
Yes.
And so it'll be interesting to see, like, what will a midlife crisis look like 20 years from now? Because, most of my friends as well, they don't stay at a job for more than 3 or 4 years. They're always looking for the next thing and leveling up and doing all this stuff. We have a lot of different values than people used to, our parents and grandparents, who you get a job for 30 years, you do that, then you retire and, live your dream. And so it's a lot of that monotony and same. But I feel like the millennials in the next generation are a lot different than that. They don't have that same type of
they don't
idea of their life to be mapped out in that way. So it will be interesting to see, like, well, what is that going to look like? What would a midlife crisis look like for a millennial who is, getting a new job every 4 years and maybe doing something he's passionate about, and maybe we'll have less Corvettes and, fake hair. I
that'd be a good start. I'm not against Corvettes, but
well,
not very practical in the U.S. when the speed limit's 55.
Exactly.
But
But yeah, so anyways, this is a side note, because I was just thinking it is interesting, because I think a lot of, you hear about the midlife crisis thing, because it is that whole, I gave up everything and I focused on a career and a family and all these things. And
a generation that did the status quo. I think you have a generation that did the status quo, and they've done everything they were told would equal success, and yet they find themselves just one day not feeling successful. Yeah. But yet everything around them is telling them they should be feeling that. So that's very conflicting emotions, I'm sure, that become very debilitating.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, around 30.
Yeah, so around 30 after my midlife crisis, Jeremiah said, well, maybe you should just find something. Just find a job to do.
Your husband.
My husband.
For those of you who don't know who Jeremiah is.
Yeah, Jerry. Jer.
Hopefully he's tuning in right now, Jerry.
But so he said, why don't you find something? And that's really honestly when the business was birthed, was having that emotion of wanting to contribute, and having the season where there was the time and energy to create something that that I would find fulfilling.
So then did you go through your mind at that point, like, all right, I could jar peaches?
Oh,
or
totally.
Like
what are my
pickles?
skills? What are my skill sets?
It's like, I can peel a mean potato.
Yeah. I didn't finish college. Surprising.
You're like, okay, well, I didn't miss out on anything, so I'm out.
Well, I came to do what I needed to do.
Right. You conquered college.
Yeah. By getting married. So really with no actual skill sets on paper, it was a little bit of searching of, okay, what am I good at? And we grew up in an Italian family where, we always laugh that at breakfast we're thinking about what's for lunch.
So true.
We travel around which restaurant spots we're stopping at.
See, I think that's just innate. I don't know what that is. My wife is always like, she's trying to tell me where a location of somewhere is. I'm like, what's around it? She's like, a Taco Bell. I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is. I'm sorry, babe.
Oh yeah. So it's definitely the food industry. I was leaning more towards when we were first married, we had a lot of company in and out of our house, and around the holidays, Jeremiah's family had decided they wanted to kind of do a low-key Christmas, and just wanted the family members to kind of create or make something. This was long before Etsy. It really was, everyone was in school at the time, and they still wanted to kind of give gifts, but be a little bit more practical about it when everybody's in school. So that was really the time that I created this concentrate. It was a chai. I had worked at coffee shops and boutiques, or coffee shops primarily, and I always felt that the chai was overly sweet or underflavored. And the people that I had on my list that year, I knew loved chai. So I just started tinkering around in the kitchen, created something, gave it for Christmas gifts, and they loved it. And then it just kind of became a tradition. When family or friends were in town, I would always make this concentrate. And that was one of the things that I thought of when I was thinking, okay, what could I create? What would be... Honestly, I think I thought what would be the easiest, really. I mean,
Little did you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my. Yes. So created the, so then that's what, I mean, I, being that we come from entrepreneurs, I knew the ups and downs, not definitely to the level that I've experienced them, but I had an awareness. So I reached out to a friend of a friend who owned his own business and asked if he would kind of mentor me through the process of writing a business plan and putting something together. And thankfully, he was very willing to help me out. And so that kind of began the slow process in August of 2013.
So you start making this concentrate for holidays and giving it as gifts and things like that. I mean, what made you think that it was that good that you could bottle it and sell it and people would buy it? You know, I mean,
yeah.
You know, people are like, oh, this is my famous casserole. It's like, this is pretty good, but I don't know if I'd, buy this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, what in you, when you thought of, started having these ideas that you're like, oh yeah, like, if I'm like, out of all the things you do really well, this one thing is heads and tails above that.
Yeah. I think I just had tasted a lot on the market, all the options that were out there. And I do think that I have had I think that there are some talents that are inborn and are natural for sure. And I think that I always had a little bit of this innate ability to kind of see within the food industry trends that were coming that weren't quite here yet that I attached myself to. And so this concentrate just seemed, not only was it really good, but it also seemed that it would be fitting into a market that was evolving where people wanted ready to drink available now. They're traveling a lot more. U.S. especially is traveling a lot more. They are filling their schedules with more, and they want these simple things in life to be exactly that. Coffee is simple, but you have to make it. Right. And sometimes that's not simple for some people. So I just saw tea as being the same, that while it's the number 2 consumed beverage in the world, it's right after water. It is a beverage that in the U.S. I think is still, up and coming and moving. So a lot of that I just really innately just really saw and thought, okay, I think I have a chance with this company to build something that hasn't been done before. And while I really liked my chai, I didn't want to pigeonhole myself creatively. So I saw other chai companies that they're just stuck making chai all over again. Right. Maybe they add chocolate to it or they decaf it. And I just felt that I would find myself getting bored pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So when writing that business plan, I decided to kind of go the route of being just a tea concentrate company. So being a company that would have a variety of teas that people mix with a milk or milk substitute. I've always enjoyed milk with my tea. So so that was August of 2013. And let's see, that wasn't. That was August of 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So made it an LLC. I wanted to make it legit. Made it an LLC. And then we, in the midst of all this, decided to move back to Colorado. I really wanted to get back home. Moving all around over a course of many years sometimes can draw you back to where you came from. And I really loved growing up here. So.
And it's one of the greatest places.
Agreed.
In the United States. But so when you start making your tea and I'm assuming you started kind of small batch in your kitchen,
right,
bottling it yourself, kind of doing all that. When you first started, did you essentially just fill bottles up, take it to where were you selling this, and like how are you getting it out there, in the beginning?
Yeah, so we had set up a co-packer, which if you're not in the food world, I mean, I had to Google this to find out what it was back in the day.
Thank God for Google.
Yes. So within the food industries, you have what they call a co-packer, and that really is a person who has all of the qualifications and certifications by the state and by the FDA to produce products that have a shelf life. And any grocery store, any boutiques, any place where you're wanting to sell your product, having a co-packer is verification for them that the process was done correctly. And I wanted to provide that to my customer base. So I hooked up with a co-packer in Colorado prior to us moving here to produce our tea on a large scale. That didn't go well. The whole batch completely went rancid. And the guy ended up was a little overconfident that he knew much about bottling beverage.
So really, I mean, talk about an epic failure right away.
Yeah.
And that must have been super discouraging as far as...
Yeah, and what do you do with cases upon cases of rancid product?
Do you get a refund for that, or...?
No, he didn't give me a refund. I think I didn't have to pay. I think I paid for the workers that day.
Okay, but you obviously had bottles and stickers and all these other pieces of that product that you couldn't reuse.
Yeah, the labels were bubbling too, so then we had problems with the label company. Definitely when talking with new entrepreneurs that are looking to start a business, I cannot stress enough that discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. Nothing will usually go as planned, and there has to be an ebb and flow to that. And that was a really hard lesson for me to learn with the business. Having children, it's very similar to having children. And to where you just don't know what you're going to wake up to. You really don't. And you have to be okay with that. You have to come to a place of like real peace about being okay with the unknown. And that was just the beginning of multiple, I can just share so many stories of things just not working out. And I think that's truly when people begin to give up on a business idea, is when it gets, we say when the going gets tough, right? And that can become, it's such a cliche, but any successful business would attest that they were doing it despite the success. Right. And I think that you have to really, I cannot tell you how self-reflective I have become starting this business. Really sitting down during some really dark seasons and asking myself, why am I doing this? I mean, you're self-inflicting pain upon yourself, and you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And always at the end of the day, I just am doing it for a much deeper reason. And I mean, I think Sprite Lorino says every great story on the planet happened when someone decided not to give up, but kept going no matter what. And I just cannot emphasize how true that is, that you have to make a conscious decision that you believe in something much deeper than being the next what is it called?
500.
Fortune 500, I mean, you have to have some deeper reasons for doing it day in, day out. And that's really what the journey has been. I mean, we're in 2018 and we just had profits this year.
Wow.
So we've been pushing hard for 5 years, not seeing a return on our hard labor at all. And we see small little glimpses, right? You get these little teasers of like, you're doing it right. And I think that's definitely, I've seen entrepreneurs ruin relationships around them because they are so focused on getting their company to be successful. And one of the things that I've been very sensitive to is surrounding myself with people that I can go to and talk to about these obstacles that I'm facing, and making sure that I'm not hurting people or hurting relationships because I have this ideal of how I want this business to go. That you sacrifice to a point, and then you have to ask yourself, is my sacrifice affecting the people around me negatively?
Right, because what good is it if you get to the top alone, or if you're wasted relationships and all that stuff around you on the, that fell you behind. So you start, essentially just the grind. I mean, it sounds like that you had a lot of roadblocks, a lot of different things that you had to overcome, but you just continue to grind, continue to push yourself. And do you think that is because you had a deep belief in what you were doing? I mean, I guess that would be the only thing that makes sense to me, that you're doing it because you know that this is, as difficult as it is, you know that this is the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
The philosophy of our company is constantly striving to do what's good for the whole. And, we teach this to our kids, and while they don't practice it daily at home, I hope one day that they will live it out, but on just an elementary level, really understanding that on a deep level, that sometimes what is really good for you is not what's good for everyone around you. And sometimes we call it sacrifice, right? And there can be a negative connotation to that, like, oh, sacrifice. But really, if we make those conscious choices to do what we think is good for the absolute whole, that we in turn benefit from that.
Yeah.
And for our kids, talking about that all the time, that, okay, while yes, it may be good for you to get X, Y, and Z, it may not be good for everyone else in the house. It may be good for you to take the last full glass of orange juice, but it may not be good for everyone else. What if we split it in thirds, So I think just our business model and how we run our business is that it's not just about tea. What we are constantly striving for is to build a company that is going to be successful because it contributes to the whole. And that's where the passion comes on my end, is wanting to prove that the model that has been used for so long, that you just are constantly climbing that ladder while you just shove people down, that doesn't work good for the whole. And that you can build a very large, successful business with that model. And there are companies doing that already.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think about, I've heard recently the story of Patagonia.
Yes.
And, other brands like that, where it's like, oh my gosh, like they really broke the mold and went against everything you hear about how you start a company, how you run a business, and they're wildly successful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, just to answer your question, I think that's been the deeper drive for me personally, is wanting to contribute to society something that I believe is going to be good for everyone. So in 2015 or 2016, we were seeing that our wholesale customers were purchasing their concentrate from us. They were purchasing their loose leaf tea from a second company, and possibly their herbals from a third. So we just found opportunity to acquire a small loose leaf tea company locally here. We purchased them, and now we're able to offer all things tea for our wholesale accounts. But in part of my reason for wanting to do that and add that to the business is that I want to begin to be invested in individuals' lives that go beyond the U.S. So these farms that we are working with, there's a number of them that provide schooling for the children of the families that work the fields, and we can contribute to their well-beings. So there's just broadening that worldview and finding ways to contribute. I can't remember who said, if you feel that you have to be giving back, you didn't give enough. And I really like that as our business grows, that we're not looking to give back, but while we are working, we are constantly giving in. And so that's what, as this business continually grows, that's what I find ourselves coming back to and asking ourselves all the time. Okay, how can we be giving more? How can we be enriching people's lives more? And that's where it's just feeding my passion. I love that. I think as a child, I loved pleasing people in a negative way, but what do they say, that your strengths are sometimes your weaknesses? And I think that as growing as an adult and really finding that I truly enjoy making people happy and I truly enjoy helping people, what are the healthy ways that I can do that? And that's where I have found truly deep contentment in that I'm able to do that.
Wow. So you essentially during this whole time you're grinding, you're working hard. What do you see the future? Like, where do you hope to take the company and grow it? And the other question I was thinking about was, when you made that decision to acquire that loose leaf company, was that a scary decision? I mean, was it something that you felt like, okay, this is going to be a bigger undertaking, or did it just feel right, like it was the next thing to do? And did that kind of...
Yeah, a lot of the things with our business.
In there?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things with our business have happened truly organically. I have no business background. I have no degree in business. I don't think business-wise either. I think that I've grown that muscle, strengthened that muscle a little bit. But for the most part, I'm running my business based upon the principles that I live my life. So it seemed like a very practical move to me.
It wasn't like you had sat down and say, all right, next step is to acquire a company.
No, I saw a need within our wholesalers, and how could I fill that need? And around the same time, it seems to me, when you start speaking things out into the universe, that, things seem to come your way. And around that time, we met somebody who owned this small tea company and was looking to get out. And so it just organically happened. I like that about the business. My husband, Jeremiah, came on to work for the business about 2 years ago, and he is very different from me. He would be under the idea that to have those plans set out. And I appreciate that in him, because I think there is a level. Yeah,
there's a place for that.
There is a need for that. Yeah. There's a lot of businesses that flop around because there is not that grounding. So I would say that it's incredibly helpful to have that. But in this case, it was something that truly just happened organically.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you were doing this, did you ever find that you had a particular mentor or somebody in your life that kind of helped you through this, or was it a lot of Googling or a lot of, library time?
Probably what I have, a lot of library time. Probably what I have going for me when it comes to running a business, I don't really have an ego with the business. I don't. My high school grades were not at all anything to brag about. Didn't finish college. Academically, that was not a model that fit well with me in learning. I struggled in that environment. So I had no pride with my education. So asking for help is not a difficult task for me when it comes to the business. Probably I have areas of my life where it's hard to ask for help, for sure. But when it came to the business, I was so eager to just learn anything and everything. So whatever level of business that we're dealing with, I am searching out individuals that I trust and have had successful businesses and asking them loads of questions. I'm rubbing shoulders with other entrepreneurs that are in the same place or a little bit ahead, and having long conversations. So it has always been a collaboration. I feel that it's taking a tribe to get this business moving continually forward. So I don't think I can think of one particular mentor. I just think that I'm constantly putting myself in places to where I can be reaching over and asking, hey, can you help me understand this? How does this work? Definitely a lot of reading. I love reading. So I'm picking up anything and everything I can get my hands on. And not believing all the books that say, master these 5 habits and then you'll be successful,
right,
or what the most successful entrepreneurs do every morning. All those
listen, I'm not waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, those people don't have children.
They're billionaires who have personal chefs and a trainer.
That's right.
All right, so what are some good resources that you'd recommend, or what are some encouraging words you could give to somebody who's coming up, who is maybe in a similar space or has an idea of wanting to do something? What would you tell them? Man, what would you say? Hey,
sure. Well, always right away I'm thinking about
go to college.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Always what I'm literature-wise, I feel like always what's the last thing I read is on the forefront of my mind. And I just got done reading this amazing book by Susan David called Emotional Agility. I cannot recommend it enough. But she has this phrase, or I'll quote her. She says, "Courage is not the absence of fear; it's fear walking."
Oh, that's deep. It's like, what does that mean?
Yes. So I definitely would recommend any entrepreneur, if they're in the same place or if they're thinking of starting a business, to just recognize that it's easy to look around. One thing I've had to become more and more intentional about is putting, just a little bit of some space in between my business and these other businesses that are being successful. We did a Kickstarter campaign in 2012, and I didn't get funded. And around the same time, there were 5 other businesses that I was actively watching
that were in a similar space.
That were in the similar space and did receive their funding. And all but one of those is not in existence today.
Interesting.
And so I think you just have to, it is so easy for us as humans to compare and to be saying, why isn't my business being successful in this area? Why isn't? And I think it becomes a true distraction from the work that is at hand. So I've slowly really grown in that area of pushing myself not to compare myself or my company. I think Ryan Holiday, I'm trying to think who he quoted, may have been Peter Thiel, who said something, there is no competition, there's no competing, that you're constantly working towards doing what's really successful for your business. Knock out the competition, create your own. So I think for any business owner starting out, it would be just have a true passion and belief in what you're doing. And the businesses that just decide to quit, there's so many reasons why they decide to do that. But I think that there's a large percentage of them that truly didn't believe in the product and didn't believe in why they were doing it.
Right.
And you can only fake it so long. I've been in some dark valleys that I never thought I would get out of. But because I believe that the company will be successful, is successful, and will continue to grow to the level I want it to, every day is a new day. And there are some times where in the pit of the valleys where I think there is no return, that the next day there's an opportunity that I never knew were coming. But it came because every day I showed up and I was working. Right. So I think for any person wanting to start a business, And some people wanting to give excuses on why their business didn't work out really should evaluate that,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes so much sense. And I think you're right on when you say, for me, I always say expect the blessing, right? Because you never know what tomorrow is going to bring. And if you can make it through today, you don't know the opportunity or, great thing that tomorrow holds. And I've seen that throughout my life as far as, where am I going to get, a client or work or business, especially when I was first starting out, and there'd be no hope, right? And then the next day someone would call and be like, hey, we have $10,000 for this project, can you be a part of it? And it's like, oh, if I would have stressed and worried and feared constantly, I would have never seen that, as a blessing. Or
yeah, that's a lot of wasted energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Save your energy,
Yeah.
Yeah, save it.
Yeah. Do you remember your first job?
Yes.
What was your first job?
I sacked groceries at King Soopers.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Come full circle.
Yeah, now
you sell
my product in King Soopers.
There's some young entrepreneur bagging your tea.
That's right. That's right. I talked incessantly to every customer. How's your day?
Yeah.
What are you up to today?
That is like the worst place to talk to somebody. I'm sure the fellow employees were like, "Shut up."
Oh yeah. Oh my bosses.
There's somebody waiting in line, and you're talking to them.
And I'm like asking what they're doing with this chicken in their cart.
Ooh, rosemary and lemon go really good with chicken.
Oh yeah.
That is very sad. What about your first car? Do you remember your first car?
It was a blue Chevy pickup, really big and bulky, no air conditioning, roll down windows. Yeah.
Nice. That sounds amazing.
It did the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a truck. What about if you could learn one skill that you currently don't have that you could learn? What would that be?
Yeah. I would really love to learn how to dance really well.
Oh, you don't know how to dance? Just kidding. I know you don't. Put your hand in the fan.
Okay, only our childhood friends will understand that. Yeah, I don't know how to dance as good as you, and so we're just all in the shadow of your amazingness. So
listen, I can't. I'm all right at dancing.
Yeah.
What about your favorite drink? Your favorite beverage?
Yes.
Other than your own tea.
Yeah. I tend to lean towards a good rye whiskey.
Oh.
Yes, that would be my favorite.
How sophisticated of you.
Well, thank you. Yes, one ice cube. I'm good.
Favorite band?
I have so many.
Top. They're playing at Red Rocks. I have to get tickets.
Okay. You already know this one. You make fun of me. The Avett Brothers.
The Avett Brothers.
Yes.
Is it Avett or Avid?
It's Avett.
Okay.
Everyone, it's Avett.
Okay.
I know.
The Avett
I mean,
Brothers.
I don't know them personally, but I know them as personal as it can get. So I don't have too many crushes out there. Really, I don't. I really don't find movie stars that entertaining.
Yeah.
I'm a bit bored with them. I can't even remember half of their names.
Yeah.
But I do really like the Avett Brothers. They're amazing. They're poets. They're modern day poets. They speak what I think in a much more eloquent way.
Are they brothers?
They are brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, Trinity, this has been a very enlightening interview, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thanks so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah. So I want to wrap up and just encourage everybody, if you are a entrepreneur, if you are somebody who is working your way up in the corporate world, if you are an artist, creative, continue to push yourself, be a part of something that you believe in. And as dark and as difficult as times may be, if you continue to push, if you continue to work hard, it's inevitable that you will be successful. There's that saying that, you're only 5 feet away from gold. There's that fable of a farmer or a miner who had worked this field and he gave up, and another person had bought that field. And then just 5 feet away from where all the digging was happening, there was, a gold mine or a diamond field or whatever it was. And it goes to show that, if we just open up our eyes a little bit, and if we look outside of, where we currently are, and we hope and we believe, that we're super close to success. So thank you so much for your story. Thank you for sharing that with us. And, I wish you all the success and achievement going forward.
Thanks, Mark. You too.
All right. See ya.